long winter break is over, and that can only mean one thing: we are back. It is time for racing again, and thus welcome to the new season of the DTM 2019, and we are here at the Hockenheimring. It is raining and it's cold, but it does not matter, because this certainly is going to be a very, very hot season. The DTM might be the most powerful season ever, and we're here with the DTM boss, Gerhard Berger. Gerhard, it's been amazing because there's so many changes and there's so much news around the DTM. So tell us, what can we expect for this phenomenal new season?
Never enough news, but we have a big regulation change. We have done, I think, a lot of work on internationalization. We have drivers out of 11 nationalities, and on top of everything, we have Aston Martin as a new brand here on the grid. And after the first practice, we have seen all the three manufacturers in the first row. So, great day. The weather conditions are not that great, but on the other side, that is good for having an interesting race. Looking forward. I think it's going to be quite exciting.
We're all very excited. Thank you so much, Gerhard Berger. And now let's get racing. So here's your commentator.
Thanks very much, Verena. I cannot tell you how energized and excited we are for this season of DTM. So much to tell you about, so much that could happen. And Philipp Eng has had not the baptism that he would have liked, because he didn't manage to get any running during qualifying because the car stopped. The reliability has really suffered this weekend across the free practice and also the qualifying as well. So Philipp Eng not having the start that he would like. New teams, new drivers, and of course we welcome WRT, who are here as an independent team with Audi, and we'll find out a bit more now with Verena.
Yeah, Audi is very strong this year, obviously, with 8 cars, and 2 of them are from your private team. Vincent Voss, it's wonderful having you here. You've got 2 rookies, so what do you expect for their very first race and for your very first race here?
Well, it's been a tough weekend so far. I mean, the weather has been terrible today. We did not have such a good quali, but we have shown some good speed yesterday in free practice, so let's see. I mean, we expect just to go to a trouble-free weekend, and well, we have to learn. We have a lot to learn, so we are here to do that.
Well, thank you very much and best of luck. Back to the commentator.
Thank you. Had a great chat with Vincent last night. Of course, he, as he quite rightly says, has 2 drivers in the team this year, Pietro Fittipaldi, and not only Pietro Fittipaldi, but also the WRT driver Jonathan Aberdeen, who incidentally takes a grid drop because his car was worked on after Parc Fermé quali conditions, and he didn't use his Parc Fermé quali joker, which you can do. So there we are, that rounds that out. The starting order, where we will see Marco Wittmann on pole position. A good number of spectators here to see the first race of the 2019 season, which not only features a brand new manufacturer in Aston Martin, but it also features so many other things. Of course, the first time 2-litre turbo engines, the most powerful DTM cars we've ever had, some 610 horsepower, push to pass, a new rear wing and DRS, and the vehicle weight has been reduced as well, below 1,000 kilograms to 986 now. So there are so many ingredients to drive us towards what should be a classic DTM season. And of course, delighted to welcome Aston Martin as a brand new manufacturer into the DTM with ARM Motorsport. So, and from by writing a chapter point of view, it couldn't have been better in qualifying, because Wittmann pole position, BMW, Mike Rockenfeller P2 for Audi, and Paul di Resta for Aston Martin, going from P3. So a really great chapter written because all 3 brands will be going on the first 2 rows of the grid. And we look at one of those phenomenal looking Aston Martin Vantage DTM cars right now. So Aston Martin, new manufacturer into the DTM with ARM Motorsport, and here this weekend is the Chief Executive Officer of Aston Martin, and that is Andy Palmer.
Oh, we're so very excited that finally Aston Martin is joining the DTM, and in the end it's been a bit of a race against the time, but you've made it and you are here and we're so thrilled. So Dr. Palmer, what are you expecting for today?
Well, you can dream of a win, I guess, but I'm really happy just to be here, and the idea that we could get a car onto the third position is just incredible. It's beyond all expectations, and I have to compliment to the our sport guys, our motorsport guys, that have done just a terrific job in getting the cars here.
Right, well, we're really, really excited as well. So fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Dr. Palmer, and back to you.
Dr. Andy Palmer then, the Chief Executive Officer of Aston Martin. Here, of course, our motorsport are running the Aston Martin Vantage DTM car across the DTM season in 2019. And Paul di Resta, the quickest of those, going from P3 on the grid. This is Joel Eriksson, a race winner last year, of course. Took a win at the Misano circuit in Italy. He is going from P9 on the grid, a time of 150.6 for Joel Eriksson. And he goes from, as I say, P9 on the grid. So BMW, Audi and Aston Martin on the first three places, which is absolutely fantastic. So Marco Wittmann with a 148.2, Mike Rockefeller with a 148.2, but Marco Wittmann just shaded it for pole position.
Wow, so here I am with the pole setter, with Marco Wittmann. He's just getting into the car, but just quickly, how does it feel, the very first qualifying of the season, and you've got pole?
Yeah, it's always a great feeling. I mean, tricky conditions, but we're starting from pole and we try our best for the race.
All right, well, off you go into the car. Don't want to keep you up, and back to you.
Well done, Verena. Doorstepping Marco before he even gets into the car. Marco Wittmann going from pole position. The rain is now... It was showering just as the cars went to grid. From showering, it's gone to really properly coming down a little bit now, unfortunately. So, and because the ambient temperature is so cold, there's pretty little chance of the track drying out, I'm afraid to say. I think we're going to be staying definitely with wet weather conditions. So wet weather tyres are going to be used throughout the race, I would suggest. I did see one of the tyre trolleys there, and it did have some slick tyres on. I think that was more out of hope and ambition than anything else. This is one of the rookies into the DTM for this year, Sheldon van der Linde. Delighted when we saw the news that Sheldon van der Linde had been signed by BMW and that he would be in a DTM car. And he did a very good job in qualifying, putting that BMW P7. So well done to the South African, Sheldon van der Linde. Looking forward to see how he progresses during DTM through 2019. Another rookie, Jake Dennis. Couldn't be more delighted to see Jake Dennis in an Aston Martin Vantage DTM car. And what a good job he did in qualifying as well. He's put the car on P6. He was looking quick in practice as well, and at times was the quickest of the four Aston Martin drivers. Jake Dennis puts the car P6, and he very much looking forward to what should be a phenomenal DTM season for him. Really good to see Jake in that car and in DTM. A real British talent, and delighted to see him here. The Hockenheim circuit then, 4.574 kilometres, 16 turns. 6 of them left-handers, 10 of them right-handers, and let's be upstanding for one, Mr. Robin Freins. Robin Freins with another good job in qualifying, goes from P5 for the number 4 car, a 149.5 for Robin Freins then, and he could be a danger man from there. Audi have looked good across the test sessions and practices as well, and Robin Freins has certainly always been there or thereabouts and could be a danger man from there. There are so many things that could happen in the space of the race. I was almost going to say 55 minutes plus 1 lap. That's not the case anymore, because yet another change is that we now go in terms of number of laps rather than race duration. The René Rast car chased Gary Pafford all the way to the championship title towards the end of the season, of course. So René Rast there, and there is the quickest of the Aston Martin Vantage DTM cars, Paul di Resta then. Back into the DTM, of course, and very much a driver with maximum experience to bring to our motorsport and to the Aston Martin effort in terms of DTM for this season. What a shot of the Hockenheim circuit unfolding in really rather murky and mirry conditions, but the exciting race underway. 1 hour from Frankfurt, perhaps an hour and 30 from Stuttgart, 4.574 kilometers. This 21,700 resident town, which plays host to so much motorsport during the course of a year, and always has a friendly and welcoming face to motorsport fans that flock to what is something of a mecca in terms of German motorsport. There you can see it unfold from our helicopter in weather conditions which were slightly better than that we see here now, with the rain continuing to come down. So let's find out a little bit more about what the strategies are going to be from the team chiefs ahead of DTM Race 1.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to compete and to win. That's the target, obviously, that we have. I think we ended on a high last year, and we hope that we can carry that over into this season.
Well, obviously exciting racing, spectacular races. I mean, the cars are fantastic. New turbo engine, DRS, push to pass, all those ingredients, top drivers, 3 super brands, so super excited. And I think even with the weather of today, it's going to be really hot on the track, and we're going to see an exciting race.
Well, I think we came here to bring 4 cars onto the grid at Hockenheim, which we achieved. A huge achievement by the team. The rest is expecting step-by-step movements into directions where we are competitive, and that's where we want to be at.
Here comes the starting grid for race number 1. Stand by. Pole position, Marco Wittmann for BMW. Alongside is Mike Rockenfeller for Audi. Then on row 2, Paul de Resta and René Rast, Aston Martin and Audi. Then we see Robin Freins and Jake Dennis, P5 and P6. Sheldon van der Linde, P7. Timo Glock is P8. Then to the next row of the grid, we find Joel Eriksson and Nico Müller on that 5th row. To the 6th row now, where we find Daniel Juncker-Deyer, a race winner last year, and Lloyd Duval going alongside him. Jamie Green and Bruno Spengler occupy P13 and P14, ahead of Pietro Fittipaldi and Ferdinand Habsburg. Welcome to the DTM, gentlemen. Philip Eng and Jonathan Aberdeen bringing up the rear of the grid as we look at the very serious, contemplating what he can do, Marco Wittmann, who's going from pole position. Done all the hard work, of course, in quali, and has put the car P1. 2-time DTM champion, knows what to do to win a DTM race. Challenging conditions, unquestionably. Marco Wittmann going from P1 on the grid. Mike Rockenfeller going from P2, Paul de Resta from P3. Conditions are not easing at all, I'm afraid to say. The rain intensity has perhaps reduced now as we see Dr. Andy Palmer from Aston Martin to the right-hand side of your picture. They're a welcome guest here at Hockenheim this weekend, and our Motorsport, of course, making their debut with the Aston Martin Vantage DTM car. We've so been looking forward to seeing that car, and I have to say they've not disappointed. 4.574 meters, then 35 laps. Lap record held by one Mr. Jamie Green back in 2017, a 132.456. We're not going to see that challenge today, regrettably, due to the conditions. Tomorrow might be a different story because it's going to be dry and we're hoping for a slightly warmer temperature. Quick facts then. Car weight lowered. Power, best power to weight ratio in history of DTM. Push to pass, another 30 horsepower available for 12 times a race. DRS and push to pass can be used together. And in the final 5 laps, DRS and push to pass can be used regardless of the gap, with the exception of the race leader, of course. And the start procedure, apologies for the spelling, a manual clutch pedal, no electronic or visual aids in the cockpit. Basically what that means is that the drivers do not have launch control available to them as they had in the past. They could preload the car. And there you can see the car of Jonathan Aberdeen, which will be starting from the pit lane. The anticipation and the excitement and the tension is beginning to build. There are a lot of people here at Hockenheim to see the launch of the 2019 DTM season. The push to pass, the vehicle weight, the DRS, the new rear wing, and of course the 2-litre turbocharged engines for the first time ever. Of course, we've been known to have those extraordinary V8s, but now 620 brake horsepower, and every single driver that I have spoken to has said this new power plant is extraordinary. We love it. and 30 brake horsepower increase in terms of power available. They love it. And so too do we. The cars are released on their formation lap. I'm rubbing my hands with invisible soap. So excited am I for the start of this 2019 season. We're going to have two formation laps. The new race distance is going to be 35 laps. And Jonathan Aberdeen, of course, cannot be released until the last car has passed, which that has done now, so he'll be able to catch up with the rest of the cars on their formation lap, and you can see just how challenging the conditions are out of the pit lane as Jonathan Aberdeen gives it a footfall there. Has to pile on the opposite lock. Jonathan Aberdeen, former single-seater star. Seen him in the Formula 3 European Championship, one of the best single-seater championships I've had the privilege to voice, if I may say that. Sadly, no longer in the form that it once was. So a replay of the grid then, as you can see, running through on ticker on the screen for you. And this is what's going to be critical for some of those drivers that are not on the effective front row of the grid, Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockenfeller, and it's going to be visibility. That's going to be really challenging because all the spray is going to be kicked up from the cars ahead. So we continue our look through the grid. A reminder to you, 2 formation laps for the cars as they explore the grip that is available to them using the wet weather tyres from Hankook. Of course, sadly, we're not going to see the slicks in use today. And incidentally, Hankook having made absolutely no difference to the compounds of the tyres this year. So where last year, tyre management, you could see almost, and we did on a number of occasions, drivers, I was going to say almost taking a gamble, but it wasn't much of a gamble where they would come in almost on the first lap and get their mandatory pit stop out of the way and their tyre change out of the way. I don't think we're going to see that with the DTM this year. I think the rear tyre wear, with the additional power that the cars have, is really going to mean that degradation plays a part. If you look there, you'd think the rear view mirrors fell off the top of the windscreen and fell onto the dashboard of René Rast's car. It's another one of the changes in DTM. We do not have rear view mirrors. We have, indeed, cameras on the back of the car which project that image onto that small screen in the car for our DTM drivers. So they're on to their second of the formation laps, and from our vantage point here, you can really see the spray and how challenging the conditions are going to be for all these drivers. In fact, such is the conditions that they're now saying we're going to do 3 formation laps rather than 2. So that's just allowing the drivers to get accustomed to the conditions that we have. So inside the car there, we can see Marco Wittmann. You can see the firewall in the cockpit of the car now, which means additional safety for the driver of the DTM. That's that big black area to the back of Marco Wittmann, the pole sitter there. And hence the reason for the monitor rather than the rear view mirror, because if you had a rear view mirror now, all you'd see is the firewall. So that's why the cameras have been installed on the screen there. You can see in Pietro Fittipaldi's car, one of the 5 rookies here with DTM for this year, driving for the WRT team. We heard from Vincent Voss, the team principal, earlier on, and a big welcome to Pietro Fittipaldi then, who's just making an adjustment there to his brake bias. That little wheel you can see there that just changes the percentage of braking from front to rear. 34 laps is going to be the new race distance, which has been confirmed following the addition of another formation lap. Now that's what it looks like from the back of the car. So you can see all that spray being chucked up. And that's what people like Timo Glock have to drive into. Timo Glock, if I'm honest with you, out of position in qualifying. I felt that he had perhaps a little bit more available to him, but he couldn't seem to get it out of the car. Of course, you'll remember with great enthusiasm, as I'm sure I certainly did, the excellent battle he had with Gary Paffett and Mike Rockenfeller at this very event last year, which set the scene and set the stall out, if you like, for what became a truly epic DTM season. I'm sure Gary Paffett crowned as champion here at Hockenheim at the end of the year. Big sideways moment there for Timo Glock, who never fails to entertain on track, getting the car back end really lit up. And on board with him, it's a great shot. You can see him down through the gears. So Dr. Andy Palmer there, and just behind Dr. Andy Palmer, of course, former chief of Mercedes-Benz Motorsport, there is Mr. Norbert Haug, who another one that I had a conversation with last night, and he too very much looking forward to this DTM season. So as the cars come around the Parabolica and head up towards the hairpin, that gives you a really, really good indicator of just how challenging the weather conditions and the spray is going to be. You can see there to the very left of your picture, there is Jens Marquardt and Stefan Reinhold, of course, from the RMG team. Jens Marquardt, the BMW Motorsport Director. Of course, we heard from Dieter Gas from Audi, and also from Dr. Florian Kemmelger from Aston Martin R Motorsport. On board with Marco Wittmann, who was making changes to his brake bias. Now, it's not impossible during the course of the race that drivers will actually make changes to their brake bias on every lap, just to get the maximum out of the car. So still with the 3 formation laps then. The car's slowing down now because we're reaching the conclusion of the 3rd formation lap. And the cars will grid up in these really challenging conditions to go racing for the new race duration, 34 laps. So, confirmation once again of the quick new facts for DTM 2019. 986 kilos without the driver is the new weight. Best power to weight ratio in DTM history ever. Push to pass, the engine power can be increased by 30 horsepower up to 12 times per race. The DRS and push to pass can be used within that 3-second range to the car in front, with the exception of the final 5 laps, where DRS and push to pass can be used regardless of the gap. That, of course, is except for the race leader. And the start procedure now much more reliant on the driver rather than the preload that we used to be able to do in terms of the start procedure, where they used to use this launch control to get the cars in.
You will take that.
So a bit of Pietro Fittipaldi's team radio as we were on board with René Rast. We were on board then with Timo Glock. And the pole sitter lines up. Marco Wittmann alongside him then is Mike Rockenfeller in the number 99 car. It's going to take me a while to get my eye into that new livery of Mike Rockenfeller, and also Marco Wittmann come to that. And perhaps the most boldest is Timo Glock. Gone is the all-yellow machine that used to be famed for Timo Glock. Ferdinand von Habsburg we're on board with here now for our motorsport. See him just feathering the throttle there. We get the green flag from the marshal at the rear. Stand by, because DTM for 2019. When the 5 lights go out, let's go racing. Marco Wittmann just bogs down a little bit. Robin Freins gets a brilliant start. He's up alongside Paul di Resta and past him already into P2. So a great start from Robin Freins. Around goes one of the BMWs. Luckily still pointing in the right direction. I'm pretty sure that might be Timo Glock. So perhaps it wasn't then, as we were just on board with Timo Glock, but Marco Wittmann, Robin Freins, P1 and P2 as the cars come through turn 2, then turn 3, and head up towards the Parabolica now, where Marco Wittmann tries to stretch his legs and increase that margin between himself and Robin Freins. They're 3 abreast, fighting over P4, 5 and 6 here, with Jamie Green in that mix very much. Diving to the inside there, this great heli shot then. Marco Wittmann sprints away as all heck breaks out behind on the hairpin. Jamie Green being tracked there, as you can see. Jamie Green, one of the few that retains similar colours to last year. So Wittmann then doing nothing wrong at the start of the race, but just found that the car bogged down with wheel spin. That also affected Mike Rockenfeller and allowed Robin Freins to come through the middle of the pack and put himself into that P2 position right at the start of the race. There's Nico Muller being chased down by the number 23 car. Here's Mike Rockenfeller now on the inside of Paul di Resta. Paul di Resta tries to come back. Timo Glock under investigation for that incident at turn number 1. René Rast trying to buy into this, of course, as well. And Joel Eriksson, he's gone from, he's up to P5. So a good start from Joel Eriksson as well. Another one of those drivers that the conditions right at the start of the race seemed to work for him. And while all heck was breaking out around, he kept his cool. But Marco Wittmann has done just that and finds himself with a 1.5 second margin over Robin Freins ahead of Mike Rockefeller. Then it's Paul di Resta, René Rast and Sheldon van der Linde as push to pass is now enabled. Jamie Green is running in P7, and Philip Eng, his luck goes from bad to even worse as the number 25 car comes in, and so too does Daniel Juncadella in the Aston Martin car. There's Danny Juncadella. So they're changing the tyres on Danny Juncadella's car already, and going for this potential. I suppose when you were where you were from Danny Juncadella's point of view, it's worth taking the gamble, and actually the gamble the same for Philip Eng, who actually doesn't have a problem but has just come in for his mandatory stop. We're so fearful that he was going to have issues, and that car going around indeed was Timo Glock, so I did get that absolutely right, but he managed to get it going in the right direction again. Let's see if we can see this from on board with René Rast then. Well, that's the reason why. To be fair, I think Timo turned in on him, and he's down in P12 now, so I don't think René Rast had really very far to go there, because Timo Glock did cut across the front of René Rast, and in fairness, he's under investigation for that. So Marco Wittmann, back as we were then, 1.5 seconds ahead of Robin Freins, who dives out of the spray to try and find some visibility. Then we have Mike Rockefeller, then we have René Rast and Paul di Resta with Sheldon van der Linde, Jamie Green, Jake Dennis. No, Lloyd Duval has got past Jake Dennis. And then it is Bruno Spengler rounding out the top 10 at the moment. So Marco Wittmann then doing a good job out front, and he's untroubled. And already in for their pit stop, Philip Eng and Danny Juncadella, who've just rolled the dice right at the start of the race and have got their mandatory pit stop out of the way. 34 laps we have got to do, and one of those laps has been completed now. Make it 2 as Marco Wittmann crosses the timing line, and now extending his lead by a further 0.3 over Robin Freins, who in turn is ahead of Mike Rockefeller. Mike Rockefeller some 4.8 down on the race leader. René Rast now under investigation for pushing another car. Well, the way we saw it on the screen, it really looked like Timo Glock turned in on him. This is a battle going on here with Joel Eriksson and the number 27 car of Jonathan Aberdeen. So there, the number 47 car of Joel Eriksson. And there with an issue perhaps was one of the cars, I think that was Ferdinand Habsburg. This is Philip Eng in the number 25 car, and the number 62 machine then of Ferdinand Habsburg sadly is being put back into the garage. So Ferdinand Habsburg is out of the race in the Aston Martin Vantage DTM car. What a shame. And this the number 25 car of Philip Eng, picking up some gravel almost like a snowplow there, as you can see, as he runs off the track and through the gravel trap. And of course the front splitter there acts almost as a plow, and you can see just how much gravel is being scattered around there. And getting by is Danny Juncadella in that number 23 car. So Wittmann leads from Freins, from Rocky, from Rast. Jamie Green chasing down Sheldon van der Linde, and ahead of this little pack is, of course, Paul di Resta in the Aston Martin car. So four-way fight going on there at the moment for those positions. And you can see as the back end of Sheldon van der Linde car just lit up a little bit there as they're trying to control here. Here comes our race leader, Marco Wittmann then, ahead of Robin Freins, 2.4 seconds the gap between P1 and P2. And di Resta some 4.5 seconds away now from that P3 place. So the rest of the order on the screen: Wittmann, Freins, Rockefeller, Rast, the 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can still see how Marco Wittmann just the back end of the car really let go then, as he still has to really work to control it in these challenging conditions. But in so doing, as out of the car comes Ferdinand Habsburg. What a shame. So Ferdinand Habsburg's first DTM race is done and dusted, regrettably. No further action with regards to the incident, as Robin Freins loses out to Mike Rockefeller. Rocky has come through on Robin Freins, as you can see, and is now putting the chase on to Marco Wittmann. So Mike Rockenfeller gets ahead of Robin Freins and begins the chase down to Marco Wittmann. The first 4 cars have really broken away from Paul di Resta. Then it's Paul di Resta, then it is Sheldon van der Linde and Jamie Green. So Mike Rockenfeller, he's the only driver that's lapping in the 58s at the moment, a 1:58.024 last time around, whereas the other top 4 drivers are in the 59. So Mike Rockenfeller's obviously found pace in the car, and this is where he managed to get past Robin Freins, going up into the hairpin then. Of course, bearing in mind that you have this push-to-pass facility, he went through on the inside then of Robin Freins. Of course, 2 Audi brand mates together. They were not going to fight too hard over that. Here is René Rast then. With René Rast, who's reeling in Robin Freins at the moment. The last lap, Mike Rockenfeller put in a 1:57.364, so he's on a charge. It's the fastest lap of the race so far. So there you can see Robin Freins defenseless against René Rast. The number 33 car goes ahead of Robin Freins now. And on the parabolica as they head up towards the hairpin, René Rast using all the advantages that he can bring as Mike Rockenfeller continues his quest to reel in Marco Wittmann. The gap down to 3 seconds now between P1 and P2. And René Rast beginning the chase as well. Top 4 then, Wittmann, Rockenfeller, Freins, Rast. Then it is the best of the Aston Martins, that's P5 with Paul di Resta. Ahead of Sheldon van der Linde, Jamie Green, Lloyd Duval, Timo Glock and Jake Dennis rounding out the top 10. Replay of the start then. So as Marco Wittmann gives it a footfall, you can see the car is sideways. The one that really got traction at the start and launched himself was Robin Freins. A very, very good start from Robin. There you can see the Rast and Glock incident where Rast and Glock went, well, Rast didn't go around, but Timo Glock certainly did. Here, let's see it again from a different camera angle. And Timo Glock get good traction as well, and he moved up significant number of places before, of course, being turned around with the contact with René Rast, which, from our angle of looking at it, looked at 6 of one, looked like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And here we can see it from René Rast's perspective then. And from Timo Glock's perspective then, from his rearward facing onboard camera, gave it a footfall to make sure that he could keep the back end spinning around so that he would be pointing in the right direction once again. Whilst we're looking at those replays, may I just mention that Mike Rockenfeller has just done a 1:55.878. So the gap to Marco Wittmann, which was 3 seconds just a lap or so ago, is now down to 2.4. So Rocky is on a charge here. We've completed 5 laps of 34. There's Robin Freins now, who's out there really sort of on his own in P4, not being caught by Paul di Resta, that's for sure. We're on board with Timo Glock, who's chasing down. So Timo Glock then with Jamie Green ahead of him. Let's see, just when you give it an absolute footful of accelerator, how the back end lights up and let's go. Parabolica heading up towards the hairpin, then on board with Timo Glock. You can see virtually nothing through the windscreen, such is the spray. And there we can see it from a high overhead shot then as he dives to the inside of Jamie Green. But Jamie Green is able to carry more momentum around the hairpin turn and therefore is not under threat at that point from Timo Glock. So once again, we go back on board with a BMW Team RMR driver. Of course, that amalgamation of RBM and RMG team is now all over the back of Jamie Green. Now, push to pass can be used, of course, to overtake, but it can also be used to defend and increase your power if you're being chased down, as Jamie Green is being chased down now by Timo Glock. A fight that's going on for P7 currently. This is playing into the hands of Sheldon van der Linde. who was able to escape up the road as Timo Glock then on the inside of Jamie Green does go through. So Jamie Green gets relegated, and the car of Timo Glock does go through. Next in his target sights will be the rookie Sheldon van der Linde, potentially. So on board with Timo Glock, how he just stuck the car on the inside of Jamie Green, which of course stays the inside for the next turn. So the overtake was done and dusted. And all of a sudden he's right on the back of Sheldon van der Linde and also Paul de Resta. So Timo Glock on something of a charge now, as in comes the number 47 car of Joel Eriksson for his mandatory pit stop. Ferdinand Habsburg, of course, we've seen in and retire the car, sadly. The other two cars that we've seen in were Philipp Eng and Daniel Juncker-Deyer. So the team go to work on the Joel Eriksson car. 8.6 second stop is not the quickest in the world, as Sheldon van der Linde now is up against Timo Glock there. BMW brand mates, of course, so the defence won't be too hard. But Sheldon van der Linde doing a very good job in his first ever DTM race in any event. But the hugely experienced Timo Glock coming up behind him now. And Timo Glock just looking to find a way past the South African. And we're on board with Timo Glock now as he puts himself alongside and past the car of Sheldon van der Linde. So next in the target sights of Timo Glock will be the Aston Martin R Motorsport car of Paul de Resta. Incidentally, the gap between Wittmann and Mike Rockenfeller is 2.1 seconds now, so where once Mike Rockenfeller was really chasing him down, Marco Wittmann's responding now by upping the ante. And now we can see René Rast in the 154s as well. Only 3 drivers in the 154s, and those are Wittmann, Rockenfeller and René Rast. But Timo Glock is showing good pace here now and is reeling in Paul de Resta. This would be, of course, for P5, which is the position that Paul de Resta holds currently. Sheldon van der Linde relegated to P7 following that overtake, of course. So Wittmann, Rockenfeller, Rast, Freins, de Resta, Glock, the top 6. And there is our race leader through the hairpin then, Marco Wittmann, heading down towards turn number 7, which is taken generally absolutely flat. Before heavy braking, before you come into the Mercedes arena here at Hockenheim. You can see how the lines taken in wet weather conditions completely different to those lines that the drivers would use if the conditions were dry, which is what we so hope for tomorrow, as Timo Glock goes through on the inside of Paul de Resta. De Resta fights back though as they head down towards turn number 7, but with Timo Glock having the inside line, he is able to go through on Paul de Resta relatively unchallenged. So Timo Glock now back up to P5, so getting back towards the sharp end of the race at the moment. 7 laps of 34 have been completed. And Timo Glock really has got some pace now relative to what he was showing at the earlier stages of the race, but do bear in mind that he was put back following that incident with René Rast, of course. He made a very, very good start and dived through the middle, but Wittmann still leading 2 seconds ahead of Mike Rockenfeller and René Rast in P3. There's René Rast, and we go on board with him now. So Rast, another one in the 53s, and in fact a 153.3 for the last lap of René Rast compared to the 153.7s and 8s for Rocky and for Marco Wittmann, respectively. So René Rast on something of a charge, makes an adjustment to the brake bias, as you can see, as they head up towards the hairpin. And this is our race leader, Marco Wittmann then. So the rain now, we think, has stopped, and it is beginning to get a little bit brighter. So the retiree that we've seen, of course, sadly, is Ferdinand Habsburg. He's with Verena now.
Yeah, I'm now here with Ferdinand van Habsburg. Obviously, for the first DTM race in your life, it would have been lovely, obviously, if this wouldn't have happened. But what exactly did happen? Why did the race end for you?
Unfortunately, I don't have too much information because I don't know what's wrong. Something wrong with the powertrain. We all see how sensitive these machines are. You know, all the manufacturers are having issues stopping cars all right, left and center. So it's not unexpected that one of us was going to struggle. Unfortunately, it was me because I do have a lot of experience to catch up on. So I'm a bit sad that I can't complete the race. It was looking reasonably exciting, especially with my teammates. So happy for them to keep on going and to learn what they're doing. But apart from that, I'm watching and I can't wait for tomorrow to get another go at it.
I bet. Thank you very much, Ferdinand, and back to you.
Thanks so much, Verena. Ferdinand Hasberg then out of the race, but he, of course, is hoping for better things for tomorrow. Right, all of a sudden, Mike Rockefeller and René Rast are in the 52s now, and the 53 lap time remains with Marco Wittmann at the moment, so the gap is really coming down now. It's down to 1.3 seconds between Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockefeller. So, as it certainly has got a little bit brighter, it's never going to dry up, that's for sure, and that indeed actually makes a difference with regards to the wet weather tyres, because of course to keep these wet weather tyres in an operating window, you have to keep them at the right temperature, and that means searching out for the wettest, densest spots on the track to keep those tyres within the operating window. Of course, they all have to do a mandatory pit change, and of course if you run in dry-in conditions on wet weather tyres, they heat up and they blister, don't they? But there's still plenty enough water across the course of the track now, but that is why you see slightly different lines rather than in the dry conditions. Therefore, the timing of the mandatory pit stop is going to be absolutely critical. So Jonathan Aberdeen here, he's feisty, has got past Nico Muller, and that's a change for P12. So Jonathan Aberdeen then for the WRT team puts himself ahead of Nico Muller. So well done to him. So it's a busy place up at the hairpin, as you can see. For the moment, all the cars make their way through with no problems at all. Keeping our eyes on the situation with regards to Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockefeller, and here comes Nico Muller coming back at Jonathan Aberdeen now to try and wrestle that place back, which he does. So Jonathan Aberdeen tries to get back as well, but Nico Muller makes the car as wide as possible, brakes. Jonathan Aberdeen now on the inside. That, of course, becomes the outside for the next turn, so he's disadvantaged by that. So Nico Muller gets that place back and holds on to it for the moment. So great fight going on between Nico Muller and Jonathan Aberdeen, fighting over that P12 position. About 10 laps of the 34 of this race duration have been completed, as there we can see Arno Zenzen on the pit wall of the Audi paddock area. He is the boss, of course, of Team Rosberg, and 153.913 just been posted by Timo Glock, who's lighting up at the moment. We still have the top three drivers all lapping in the 152s, which is why you can see now, all of a sudden, Marco Wittmann has got Mike Rockefeller for company, a personal best from Timo Glock. And what, of course, Marco Wittmann is going to have now is he's going to have some backmarking traffic to come up against those drivers that have been in for a mandatory pit stop, including the car of Philippe Eng. Going to come up against them now. I'm not suggesting for a moment that Philippe Eng is going to hold Marco Wittmann up. Of course he won't. He might put himself in a position where he makes it more difficult for Mike Rockefeller to come by. Who's to say? So Marco Wittmann then dives to the inside of Philippe Eng. And Philippe Eng now is approached by Mike Rockefeller. I mean, Philippe couldn't get further off the racing line. If he tried, he was on the curbs there. Brilliant driving from Philippe Eng, not hampering anyone in the race. And so Mike Rockefeller continues his quest to get on terms with Marco Wittmann. So there is the René Rast car. Having got past as well, and the order: Wittmann, Rockefeller, Rast. Then 1.3 seconds between Marco Wittmann. Whoa, gets very sideways there, and René Rast is the quickest of the three at the moment, having posted a 151.884. We're on board with him now. René Rast means business here. He is reeling in Mike Rockefeller as they head towards the hairpin. And this in super slow-mo replay of Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockefeller. Look how Rocky controls the sliding rear end of that car. And so too René Rast then as they make their way through the Sachs turn, which is slightly banked. That was a great image to show you. Interestingly now, the surface water is really diminishing and has been displaced. So the spray is much less now than it was, and therefore that is allowing the drivers not only to reduce their lap times and become quicker, but of course run closer to the car in front without their visibility being so impaired as it was right at the start of the race. So Wittmann, 1.3 seconds ahead of Mike Rockenfeller. But Mike Rockenfeller is barely a second ahead of this man that we're on board with now. René Rast for Audi Sport Team Rosberg. Whoa, as he holds onto the car, you can just see the back end really let go then, as René Rast continues around the Sachs turn now to really chase down that car of Mike Rockenfeller ahead of him. It was a good save from René Rast. Of course, right in the championship chase, right to the final race weekend last year. And now is ever closer to Mike Rockenfeller. So the gap remains the same between Wittmann and Rocky, but it's just 7/10 between Rocky and this man, René Rast now. And that follows another 151.759, despite the sideways moment. He controlled the car beautifully, kept the momentum and kept the pace. So Mike Rockenfeller's P2 position is going to be under threat on this lap, that's for sure. Just watch these cars around the Parabolica as they head up towards the hairpin now. Is that where René Rast is going to, like a viper, bite Mike Rockenfeller now? Both cars, of course, Audis. Rast to the outside, which is the preferred line, no problem whatsoever. He goes through to pick up P2. And now Marco Wittmann is going to come under pressure from René Rast. So the number 33 car, again sporting a different livery to last season, just to try and confuse me. René Rast is P2, and you can see the pace that he's got. Wittmann in the 152 zeros, Rocky in the 152 zeros, but Rast over the last lap was a 151.759. Wittmann responds though by doing the best sector of anyone, the fastest first sector of the race, as the conditions continually alter, not necessarily to do with the pace of the car, but more the track conditions that are constantly evolving, as the surface water is being displaced now and has been displaced from the 12 laps that we've run. Here in replay then is the overtake from René Rast on Mike Rockenfeller, which was very easy, but he's had the pace to be able to do it, and he's looked quicker and quicker and quicker over the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 laps. And from another vantage point then, as he heads into the hairpin, having got the job done. Rast now is the only driver that has posted a sub 151 time. It's a 150.557. We're going to see times into the 49s before much longer, I would suggest. So Wittmann leads from René Rast ahead of Mike Rockenfeller. Then it is Robin Freins that's running P4. Then it is the BMW driver Timo Glock that is running P5, ahead of the best of the Aston Martins, which is Paul Di Resta, Sheldon van der Linde, Loic Duval, Jamie Green, Bruno Spengler, just to round out the top 10 for you. So on board then, as Marco Wittmann turns in, crosses up those arms then. These phenomenal DTM cars, the most powerful DTM cars ever, as René Rast is stalking now. On board with René Rast then, as he holds on to that car down into the Mercedes arena. And we're preparing for some pit stops, and you can see the surface water being just swept away, and that was the pit box of one Mr. Marco Wittmann, as René Rast sets the fastest lap then, and there Sheldon van der Linde gets past Paul Di Resta. So good move from Sheldon van der Linde in the number 31 car. He gets past Paul Di Resta and puts himself in P7. Here comes Di Resta fighting back though. Around the Parabolica they go side by side as they head in towards the hairpin. Sheldon van der Linde puts the car in the middle of the track, makes Di Resta work for it around the outside. Does that mean that he falls prey to Jamie Green? Potentially so. Sheldon van der Linde for the moment stays ahead, and you can see how Paul di Resta really wants to try and get that, wrestle that position back again, but he is having to defend from, of course, Jamie Green as well. So Rast now with a 150.081, 151.048 for Marco Wittmann. But look at them. Now, we did just see Marco Wittmann's pit crew preparing to bring Marco Wittmann in. When will they bring him in? So hairpin now, brake bias adjusted by Rennie Rast. Looks like that brake bias lever has got a mind of its own as it was bringing itself back there. Who was that we saw running out onto the grass? So there is Wittmann, of course, going to come up against some traffic. So that was the number 28 car of Loic Duval. And Duval was in P6. So here's Rennie Rast. So Wittmann has got traffic ahead of him. Rast pushing as hard as he dares. Conditions are still challenging, no question about that. Down through the gearbox, back on the power again. These fantastic new 2-litre turbocharged cars sound absolutely brilliant. And he's almost welded to the back now as he goes around the banked Sachs turn. Taking as much curve as he dares. Curves offer so much less adhesion because of the paint. Well, it's not now that Marco Wittmann is coming in. So we stay on board with Rennie Rast now as he mounts his charge and challenge to get ever closer to Marco Wittmann. And as they cross the timing line, there are just tenths between them, and there's only 4 of them. Philip Eng makes sure he's not in the way of the race that's going on. Great driving from Philip Eng. Now it's got to be this lap, hasn't it? That Rennie Rast mounts his attempt to overtake the BMW driver, Marco Wittmann. Champion versus champion. Formers of course, Marco Wittmann, 2 championships to his name. Rennie Rast, of course, winning the championship in his rookie year in the DTM. So Parabolica then, up towards the hairpin. Now, can Rennie Rast get close enough to dive to the outside of Marco Wittmann? I don't think so, because Wittmann is responding. They're both in the 151s. Rast almost touches the back end of the Marco Wittmann BMW. So down now through turn number 7, which is taken absolutely flat. And they head in towards the Mercedes arena now. For the moment, Marco Wittmann has seen off the charge and challenge from Rennie Rast. But it is a question of when, not if, that charge is going to come to take over the lead of this race. And the number 33 car, Rennie Rast, is the one that is doing the chasing. Marco Wittmann now having to do the defending. He makes just a slight mistake there and runs a little bit too much over the curbs. Able to settle it all, though, and hold it all together. And another great shot as they make their way around the Sachs turn then and head into the final 2 turns here at the Hockenheim circuit, which once again is the venue for the start of the season of DTM here in 2019, with so many new features to these cars. And another lap is put in the book by Marco Wittmann. And Rennie Rast will rejuvenate and re-energize his charge to try and come past. On board with Rennie Rast. Braking now, backmarking traffic ahead, which will keep right out of the way to allow this fight to continue. Very good job done there by Daniel Juncadella to not get in the way of these two who are fighting over the P1 place. And again, Parabolica. Marco Wittmann really seems to have the better of him here. And Rennie Rast is not able to close as much as he would like. Under braking, though, he really does. And middle ground now used through the hairpin rather than the wide outside, as the track conditions are changing and continue to change. So last lap around, a 150.716 for Marco Wittmann. It was a 150.770 for Rennie Rast. So there is virtually nothing between them. The times are static now. one wonders
Pit stop
if...
light, Paul. Pit stop light. Pit stop light. You get the use set on the medium pressures. Remember the pit stop light.
So Paul di Resta, who was saying there on team radio, absolutely no grip. So
there's just 0 grip.
There you go, you hear it again. 0 grip is what Paul di Resta said. So he has a new set of the Hankook wet weather tyres then, and therefore, when you consider that Paul di Resta has gone from P4, and he's saying that he's really suffering from no grip, as we're seeing the lap times really static now between Marco Wittmann and René Rast. The question is raised, is now the time to bring those cars in, because those wet weather tyres have gone past their best now. So there is Rast. René's last lap was a 1:51.043, whereas Marco Wittmann's was a 1:50.240. So Wittmann has been able to extend that margin, look, to 1.3 seconds. I mean, they're both 5 seconds, or 6.5 seconds from the lead, ahead of Mike Rockenfeller. So here is René Rast. Was chasing down. I wonder if, in his chase, he has just taken so much out of those tyres that he is going to need to come in and get that sorted and get a new set on before he can really consider chasing down once again. The number 99 car of Mike Rockenfeller there. And there the number 23 car. Bear in mind the number 23 car of Daniel Juncadella. And Daniel Juncadella was one of the first to come in for the mandatory pit stop. Was rolling the dice because could afford to make that gamble. Truthfully, it was back in the grid and back on the pack, and therefore it was worth taking that punt, presumably. So René Rast around the Sachs turn now. I wonder if, can I see from our commentary position whether they're preparing themselves in the Rast garage? I'm not sure. Don't think so. Nope, sure enough, he's not diving in yet, nor is Marco Wittmann. We are at about half distance of the race. It's Bruno Spengler now who's running in P8 because he's got past Jamie Green. Rast is up the ante again to a 49.2. So Bruno Spengler then and Jamie Green fighting over the P8 place, which Bruno Spengler has wrestled away from the British driver, Jamie Green. So Spengler in the BMW then, ahead of Jamie Green. And then, of course, it is Jonathan Aberdeen, and this
just doesn't feel right. It's going spongy, go more to the floor when you press it, like it's losing pressure.
Retirement.
Remember when you're about to take the stick out and you need to go to the weighbridge.
So he was complaining of no grip at all when he came in for his mandatory tyre change, and now he has to retire from the race. So Rast re-engaging that fight after resting the tyres briefly and perhaps cooling them a little. And now we see Paul di Resta as the second retirement of the race. So the Rast charge on Marco Wittmann continues. They're exactly a second apart, and that may change as they cross the sector line now. Sure enough, as you can see on screen, a score. That was a full-on power slide from René Rast, and that was through the Mobil 1 turn. It was really enjoyable to watch, but it's not the quickest way around there, to be fair. It might entertain us, but it doesn't mean he gets any closer to Marco Wittmann, sadly. So 48.8 then for Rast. And let's see now as he crosses the timing line how much quicker he was than Marco Wittmann on that occasion. Well, the gap is down now to 6/10. Arno Zenzen there on the pit wall. It's a 1:48.987 versus a 1:49.365. So 6/10 the margin between Marco Wittmann and René Rast. Bear in mind, Wittmann's got to come in. Rast has got to come in, so too Mike Rockenfeller and Robin Freins and Timo Glock and all the drivers thereafter, with the exception of Juncadella, Ericsson and Philipp Eng, and of course we've lost Paul di Resta and Ferdinand Habsburg. So Parabolica again, this is where I think Marco Wittmann is able to hold his own. because René Rast is just not able to get close enough here, which is the obvious place where you would use all the things that you can to get ever closer, as Jamie Green is having to defend now from Jonathan Aberdeen. Jonathan Aberdeen just taking a look at the inside there, but that would give him the inside for the next one, but the outside for the critical final 2 turns. And Jonathan Aberdeen not close enough to be able to do so anyway, so Jamie Green is able to defend that position. So Wittmann, Rast, Rockefeller, Freins, Glock, the top 5. Here comes Jonathan Aberdeen again on Jamie Green. So undoubtedly the rookie Jonathan Aberdeen is being very racy here versus Jamie Green. To the outside then to try and get better momentum here. Jamie Green, very experienced racer, just places the car where he knows he needs to place it. But surely he's going to be prey through the parabolica heading up towards the hairpin. Aberdeen can see, I would think, absolutely nothing. So reliant on Jamie Green sticking to his line because Aberdeen can see nothing. You can see Jamie Green tries to squeeze him a little, and he does squeeze him. And Aberdeen's attempt at an overtake there was really rather compromised by virtue of the fact he had to take to the runoff area just to hold on to the car, so he's going to have to try and do it all over again. Here it is, you see, goes to the outside, then Jamie, it gives him almost, I was going to say racing room. There was just a little love tap between the two of them. Green turns in, Aberdeen gets on the paint, that's where he loses momentum and grip, and well, it looks like he's got past him now. Anyway, Paul di Resta, we've seen a retirement. Let's hear from him.
So I'm now here with Paul di Resta. Paul, we were hearing you complain on the radio there's no grip. Can you describe for us what it's like out there?
The conditions are quite like qualifying, but I was 5-6 seconds slower. It's a different set of tyres, but just couldn't get any grip. The other guys are doing the same lap times as they did before, so not really too sure, and then we had to retire because something happened with the brake. So.
Okay, but you don't know what happened exactly?
No.
Well, thank you very much. Back to you.
Okay, so a problem with the brakes as well. Well, we just saw in replay how Jonathan Aberdeen did get past Jamie Green, and now having a go is Jake Dennis then in the number 76 car. Jake Dennis does put himself ahead of Jamie Green, but carries a lot of speed into the hairpin, but was able to hold on to it. That's not the hairpin, he was going into that turn of brake, but he did manage to hold on to it. And now is ahead of Jamie Green. It was going through turns 2, 3 and 4 actually. So they're on the parabolica now with Jake Dennis ahead of Jamie Green. Jamie Green fighting back now though. Jake Dennis places the car right in the middle of the track and then to the outside to try and deny both Jamie Green and Nico Müller. Almost a touch from Jamie Green on the back of the Jake Dennis Aston Martin Vantage. But Jake Dennis stays ahead for the moment. Jamie Green is not giving this up without a fight. Jake just gets onto the curbs and the painted area. Nico Müller now on Jamie Green. Nico Müller placing the car almost on the inside. 21 laps of 34 have been completed. The Wittmann-Rast gap is 7/10. You can see Jamie is really struggling with the back end of the car in terms of the grip that's afforded these wet weather tyres that have done more than half the race thus far for some drivers. Here comes Nico Müller then on the inside, and there is Pietro Fittipaldi going all the way around the outside. That was a great move from Pietro Fittipaldi. And now you can see just how far up the road Nico Müller has got in the space of but a few meters, but still Jamie Green stays out there. And I'm really, really surprised that more drivers haven't dived in. It's right on the cusp, I think, of the time to do it. So 30 years Decker and DTM and Nico Müller and Pietro Fittipaldi both ahead of the number 53 Jamie Green car. So that means Nico Müller is P11 and Pietro Fittipaldi is P12. And of course Jake Dennis running in P10 now. Rast and Wittmann were remaining within a tenth of keeping that gap constant at 7 or 8 tenths. Muller is going to come under the threat of Pietro Fittipaldi now. We're on board with Pietro then. Again, you can see as the throttle is floored, so the back end of the car just loses traction. He controls it nicely with some opposite lock. Take that turn 7 flat, then brake for the Mercedes Arena into turn number 8. And here's P1 and P2. The Marco Wittmann-René Rast battle. Timo Glock, who's running in P5 incidentally, has just posted a 1:47.804, which is fast. So Timo Glock all of a sudden getting second wind then perhaps for the second half of this race. We've got 12 laps remaining. And we're on board with René Rast. Of the 18 cars, only 5 have been in for their mandatory pit stop. Race control then say a change of climatic conditions, as of course the track is drying out, and a super slow-mo of the highlights of our race leader currently, Marco Wittmann. Jonathan Aberdeen dives into the pit lane for his mandatory stop. And it'll be interesting to monitor the times of Jonathan Aberdeen when he comes back out. So there the team go to work on the number 27 car, the Audi WRT
okay,
team.
You are in wet. Be careful. Wet. Chloe.
Be careful, it's wet. Really tricky when you first get into the new tyres that are on that car, but Jonathan Aberdeen tries to hold on to it, and he's back out on track again because of course the tyres, well, they're almost refrigerated, and there you can see the consequences of that. They are so cold that until you can get them up to temperature, no warmers, of course, are allowed. And Aberdeen is really struggling. But he does keep it pointing in the right direction, and credit to Jonathan Aberdeen for that. Just needs to generate as much temperature as possible, as quickly as possible into those tyres. And again, look, he skates off at the hairpin. Again, manages to hold on to it and keep it pointing in the right direction, but losing out on his forward momentum there. Daniel Juncadella going past. So, and it takes a couple of laps really to bring those tyres up. Now the number 28 car of Loic Duval is perhaps under threat now from Sheldon van der Linde. Sheldon van der Linde last lap around was in the 49s. Duval was in the 50s in terms of lap time, and there you can see how the gap has seesawed between the two of them. So Sheldon van der Linde meaning business here, and a great showing from him as a rookie driver in this, his first DTM race. If he can get to the inside of Loic Duval, this would give him the inside for turn number 7, but he's not able to do so. Loic Duval is able to keep it together. Incidentally, Timo Glock has just done a purple sector, a 48.1 and a 147.6 as Sheldon van der Linde puts himself to the inside of Loic Duval. Duval makes the car twice as wide as it is to try and deny Sheldon van der Linde from coming through, but has not been able to do so. So Loic Duval doing a good job at the moment because Sheldon van der Linde has not been able to get past despite some brilliant efforts from him. Glock's one to keep an eye on here. Timo Glock, who's running in P5, just done a 147.192. But we're keeping our eyes here on this battle that's going on, and this is for Sheldon van der Linde and the Loic Duval car. They're fighting over this P6 place at the moment. Loic Duval is P6, Sheldon van der Linde is P7. And Bruno Spengler trying to buy into the battle as well. And Bruno Spengler quicker than the both of them because, of course, as they fight, so they become slower. And that allows Bruno Spengler to get back into it. 10 laps left of this 4.574 kilometre Hockenheim circuit for this first DTM race of 2019 in weather conditions which have not been ideal ideal, but the race has not been without its dramas. So here comes Van der Linde now on Loic Duval, heading up towards the hairpin. And nothing like close enough to be able to get on terms with Loic Duval. Discussions going on inside the pit garage there. And just looking at this poor Jonathan Aberdeen in replay then, trying to hold on to that car and control that tyre in these really challenging conditions. By my reckoning, this will be his second lap after having come in for his tyre change, and the tyres are still not affording him the grip that he would like. You can see he's really tiptoeing the car around, and of course dropping down the order like you would not believe. Is down in P15 now. Rennie Rast consistently making alterations to his brake bias, the balance between the front and the rear braking in terms of how much percentage is put to the front and the rear of the braking system. Marco Wittmann now looking a bit more comfortable, truthfully. Now bear in mind, both of these drivers have still got to come in, and what have we got, 9 laps left. Aberdeen has been lapped as well, incidentally, such as his trouble holding on to that car. Which, is that going to impact everybody else? Is that going to be the same for everybody else? And, you know, all leaving it till not the last minute, because we've still got 8 or 9 laps, but they're certainly leaving it till the very end, because neither Marco Wittmann nor Rennie Rast have come in. So, of course, what they're hoping is that the track conditions will dry out still further. So there is Rast. And there is our race leader, Marco Wittmann, in the green and white Schaeffler liveried BMW. And Rennie Rast now getting a bit closer. He's taking a couple of tenths out of Marco Wittmann now. We're onto the Parabolica once again. Of course, Rennie Rast would love to put himself ahead of the Marco Wittmann car before the mandatory pit stop. Is he going to be able to do that? Don't think he's close enough yet. And you can see how offline it still is wet in the Parabolica, but online it's almost looking dry-ish. I don't think for a minute it's ever going to be conditions where you can use dry tyres, but there is definitely a very, very different drier line. And there you can see Wittmann and Rennie Rast, car number 33 then, who is currently running in P2. 5 tenths behind the race leader. So, I'm going to give due credit to Marco Wittmann here. He's not been fazed by the pressure of Rennie Rast behind him for lap after lap after lap after lap. Really kept his cool. Are they preparing to bring Marco Wittmann in? Because that is certainly Marco Wittmann's garage. So, is it going to be the next lap then that the RMG team are ready to receive Marco Wittmann in the pit lane? Let's see. We've completed 27 of the 34 laps. And these two have been so close, as Mike Rockenfeller comes in now from that P3 place.
Is the used set from this morning, and you will be alone on track.
So the Phoenix team using a used set from the qualifying this morning. They've put those onto the Mike Rockenfeller car. He's released now. 6.5 seconds. Sheldon van der Linde has got past Loic Duval. All of them getting past the Jonathan Aberdeen car, which is just falling back down the order, isn't it? Still those dark clouds loom overhead. So Sheldon van der Linde has been something of a star in this race, in my opinion. Running in that P7 position. So diving into the pit lane comes the Bruno Spengler car. Now we can see them getting ready on the garage alongside Bruno Spengler's. That's the garage, of course, of Marco Wittmann. Are they going to bring in Marco in on this lap? Where is Marco on the track now? So in comes Bruno Spengler. And a new set of wets going on to the Bruno Spengler car then. The team go to work on that. And Bruno Spengler is released. Well, they're certainly not bringing... I wondered if they were going to stack them up, but no, because Marco Wittmann has gone through. Bruno Spengler comes out now, nurses the car on those new tyres. Here's Marco Wittmann then, hasn't come in on this occasion. In comes Jamie Green now. And there's a problem.
Start the engine, start the engine. Gear in and go.
Oh, so Jamie Green does get going. So Wittmann and Rast remain out. Mike Rockenfeller has been in, so too has Bruno Spengler, so too now has Jamie Green. What have we got? 6 laps left. On board with René Rast. And you can see now from that high shot how very different the track looks now on the racing line in comparison to even the middle and start of the race. Of course, it hasn't rained now for a significant amount of time. So there is Marco Wittmann, our race leader, who's got 1.3 seconds, 2.3 seconds now over René Rast. Surely, is it going to be this lap? So we're on board with René Rast, who's got a problem. That's why the gap has increased so much. Rast has got an issue with the number 33 car. Wittmann does not come in.
Okay, sorry mate, please take the data stick with you.
So Arno Zenzen walks away from the pit wall. And René Rast is out of the race. You can just sense the dejection, can't you? Having tried so hard. Now, if that's the car that we're hearing, it sounds really ropey, doesn't it? Oh, and that is just such a shame. Some fine battle that had gone on for the entire race. And here is René Rast then, just suddenly feeling that, you know, the car was not performing as it should. You can see the making his way through this turn now, and that's when the car just lets go. I'm not sure whether that's engine or whether that's a transmission issue. Anyway, whatever issue it is, he's out of the race. So, all of a sudden, Robin Freins, some 38.4 seconds down on Marco Wittmann, finds himself in P2. Timo Glock is in P3. Right, what can Timo Glock do about Robin Freins? Both Timo Glock and Robin Freins have got to stop. Please bear in mind, Mike Rockenfeller has stopped. So Mike Rockenfeller, who's currently P4, has made his mandatory pit stop. Wittmann, Freins and Glock have got to stop yet. So Jamie Green also having made a pit stop, but he's not going to trouble the front runners. Mike Rockenfeller, however, that could be a completely different story. What he needs to do is get past Jamie Green here as quickly as he possibly can. We've got 4 laps remaining in this race. Oh, and you can see how frustrated Rocky is behind Jamie Green now. And I think they're getting ready to receive Marco Wittmann into the pit lane. So this is Rocky then heading up towards second from last turn. Robin Freins has come into the pit lane.
3 laps to go, 4 laps to go.
So in comes Robin Frijns. Needs to be a great stop here from the Ad Sportsline team on the Robin Frijns car.
Go, go, go.
6.3 seconds.
Push fighting for the podium.
And he's out. So Robin Frijns making his way down the pit lane now. He'll have to nurse the car, of course, on those cold tyres. 4 laps remaining. Now here is Marco Wittmann, just got past the snaking car of Jonathan Aberdeen. I think it's this time. I think Wittmann will be in. Might be wrong, of course. There's Lloyd Duval. There is Bruno Spengler. So Marco Wittmann, is it going to be this time? Yes, yes, yes. So poor Jonathan Aberdeen has been lapped twice now, but Marco Wittmann is into the pit lane. So the RMG team standing by to receive the race-leading car. This is the one to watch here, Mike Rockenfeller, who's got past Jamie Green now. Bear in mind, Mike Rockenfeller stopped earlier on. And we're into the final 3 laps of the race then. DTM Race 1 of the 2019 season as the team go to work on the Marco Wittmann car. That's not bad, 6.8 seconds as Marco Wittmann is released from the pit lane. He needs to be really, really careful and generate temperature into those tyres as quickly as he possibly can. So Marco Wittmann out of the pit lane now. And Timo Glock has dived into the pit lane and we're on board with him. Mike Rockenfeller has just crossed our position of commentary here in the main grandstand. That's not the quickest stop for Timo Glock. He's on his way out of the pit lane now. His garage is positioned right close to the exit of the pit lane. Here comes Robin Frijns, who's had a lap to put some temperature onto those tyres, and therefore Timo Glock will become vulnerable to Robin Frijns. There's nothing that Timo Glock's going to be able to do against defending from Robin Frijns. Robin Frijns carries that speed through into turn number 2. The back end of the car lets go, but he controls it nicely. In comes Sheldon van der Linde. Also in is Jake Dennis. And so too is Pietro Fittipaldi. So in the closing stages of this DTM race, long time with the Jake Dennis car on the jacks there.
Engine on, engine on, engine on. Fronten. Let's go. Okay, we have a race to finish.
So Jake Dennis, he is finally released, but he was a long while on the jacks there. So this then is the Lloyd Duval car. Then we see Sheldon van der Linde. And then it's Jonathan Aberdeen. So with all the pit stops done and dusted now, of course with the exception of René Rast, who we've seen with the car not going any further, sadly, everyone has been in and taken their mandatory pit stop, and we have 2 laps left to run. There is Marco Wittmann. To be fair, the strategy that the team employed was the right one. We always question it because we always wonder whether things could be done slightly differently, but in the event, they did it exactly right, and Marco Wittmann continues to lead the race. That's a great onboard shot alongside the car of Marco Wittmann then, as he heads down towards turn number 7 now. So Wittmann for BMW, then it's Mike Rockenfeller and Robin Frijns ahead of Timo Glock, Sheldon van der Linde and Jake Dennis. Well, I think Jake Dennis may well drop down that order significantly indeed. Duval just posting a 1:42.791, so time's very different now from, of course, what we saw. So there's Mike Rockenfeller running in that P3 place in the number 99 car. Marco Wittmann crosses the timing line to start the last lap of race 1 of the 2019 DTM season. We're on board with Pietro Fittipaldi, who is running in P10 the WRT Audi RS5 DTM. Parabolica is where we find Pietro Fittipaldi now, heading up towards the hairpin. Down through the gearbox, through the hairpin. Here comes Robin Freins then to start his final lap. He's some 32.9 seconds down on Marco Wittmann. His last lap, a 1:44.063. He's the fastest man. No question about that, but the gap towards P1 and P2 is just too great. Wittmann then, 12.5 seconds over Mike Rockenfeller. Glock started P5, of course got turned around, ended up P12. Now, would you believe, he's P4. He's 5.5 seconds back from Robin Freins. It's been a great debut for Sheldon van der Linde, who is P6. So there have been a lot of notable achievements in this race. However, the man that did all the hard work in qualifying but had to convert that into the pace that he needed for the race, and he's managed it absolutely perfectly, and you can see why he is cool, calm, collected, and a 2-time DTM champion to win race 1 2019, Marco Wittmann. Mega Marco, they will say. Here comes Mike Rockenfeller for Audi, who will take P2. Some distant way down on the race leader, but Mike Rockenfeller does take P2.
Rocky, P2, very good race, P2.
So Rocky takes that P2 position. And 2 corners still left to do before we'll get to the P3 car, which goes the way of Robin Freins for Audi. So Robin Freins starts his season with a podium place. It's
great job,
P3.
my friend. Great job, P3. Slow down, ELS off.
Timo Glock will take P4. And a 1:42.469, so will be the fastest lap as well. Then it will be Loic Duval, Sheldon van der Linde, Bruno Spengler. But the race winner is Marco Wittmann. And the rest of the cars come through. It's been, well, fairly drawn out in terms of where the cars are on track in conditions that at the start of the race were horrific. And, well, you can see the delight from Marco Wittmann. And still cars crossing the line. Danny Uncadella, incidentally, pitted on lap 1 and has finished P9. And there is Jake Dennis, and there is a bitterly disappointed René Rast. He'd done such a good job, hadn't he? And I just wonder, when we saw that onboard shot as Jens Marquardt, he's pretty happy as well. With Ingo there from Ingo Lebrink from BMW, but when we heard that from being on board with that car, I wonder whether it's not power, whether it is transmission. That's you know, what I'm trying to get my thought process around. So Marco Wittmann, winner of race 1 of the 2019 season. And this is when he saw the checkered flag for the win. Team did a great job in terms of strategically leaving him out until he eventually came in, perhaps later than I thought would have happened, but it was the right call. And there is the delight. Clear to see. Well done, Marco Wittmann. Race winner again. And there, Jens Marquardt, very, very happy. So Wittmann exits the car then. Rockefeller already there and parked up. And there is the cheer. So the drivers will be weighed and then hustled off to for the focus of the media, and then of course the podium to come. And there the cars all parked up. What a race. Now, we've always been able to say with DTM that whatever happens in race 1 doesn't necessarily give us a form guide for race number 2. Well, that will be even more poignant today because we're hoping that tomorrow will be dry. Of course, there's no guarantees, but that's what we're hoping for. And therefore, it'll be a completely different race. That's a good vault, to be fair. That was a good one. Glad we captured that. And there is our race winner. Well, DTM has started again. Thank goodness. Pretty pleased with the car. Certainly didn't fail him today. And all three together there. The 1, 2, 3. Marco Wittmann, Mike Rockefeller and Robin Freins. And here then, the top 3. High flying! Robin Freins is P3. And before we see the rest of them, the race winner is Marco Wittmann.
And here he is with me. Congratulations, Marco. Phenomenal from pole to victory. How does it feel, the very first race of the season, to snatch it?
Yeah, just great, to be honest. I mean, started already great with the quali, and yeah, it were tricky conditions, especially with the start. First time no handbrake start, but I managed to stay in front, and it was just a great race, to be honest. I had quite a lot of pressure first from Mike, then from René. Actually, I didn't know what happened with him. Suddenly I didn't saw him anymore in the mirror, so I guess a technical problem or something like that. But yeah, the car was great. The guys did a phenomenal job, and just great to start a season like that.
Absolutely. Congratulations again. See you later, and back to you.
Well, they did do a great job, and so did he. He had to drive it. The lights to flag victory goes the way of Marco Wittmann. Mega Marco is back. Confirmation of the classification then. P1 Marco Wittmann, P2 Mike Rockefeller, P3 Robin Freins, then it was Timo Glock, Loic Duval, Sheldon van der Linde, the best of the rookies. Well done, Sheldon. Bruno Spengler P7, Nico Muller P8, then it was Daniel Juncadella ahead of Pietro Fittipaldi taking P10. From Jake Dennis P11, then it was Jamie Green, Joel Eriksson, Philip Eng, Jonathan Aberdeen, and we didn't see Rennie Rast, Paul de Resta, and sadly Ferdinand Habsburg complete the race. So we're standing by for the podium ceremony then. I can see from our vantage point that the drivers have made their way up onto the podium. And this is one that they will really enjoy. So a podium being readied, as you can see. And on the race to come tomorrow, there's Mike Rockefeller and Marco Wittmann. I'd like to listen into this if I could. But of course, they're conversing in German, as you would expect, so we can't learn too much from that.
No way.
Of course, as soon as Robin Vriens joined in the conversation, it turned to English, so we were able to understand a little bit more. So the race winner then is called out onto the podium to the top step, Marco Wittmann. P2, Mike Rockenfeller. And P3 for Robin Vriens. Team represented, of course, as well from BMW Team RMG. And the anthem plays out then for Marco Wittmann, our race winner. And a trophy's about to be presented. Mr. Matthias Ekström, the two-time DTM champion here. Great to see you here. Eki making the trophy presentation to Marco Wittmann. Of course, he made a guest entry last year. And it was good to see him back on the track. Magdalena Breszka then, the 26-time champion, makes the trophy presentation to Mike Rockenfeller. I have to say, they've not saved any money on the trophies. They're big uns, aren't they? And Mike Rockenfeller gets his P2 trophy. And Mr. Dominic Harrison then, the star influencer, makes the trophy presentation to Robin Vriens. So come on guys, is it time for the bubbly yet? No, photographs must be first. Right, now we're ready, Marco. The new carbon champagne explodes on the podium for our first winner of 2019, Marco Wittmann. Hello, Mike Rockenfeller doing a bit of a jig at the end of the podium there as well. Well done to each and every one of them. So, the points then, after the first race. Marco Wittmann has 28, Mike Rockenfeller has 20, Robin Vriens has 15. Then it's 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 to Pietro Fittipaldi. But Sheldon van der Linde, look, a rookie on 8 points already from his P6 finish. Well done, Sheldon. And well done, Pietro Fittipaldi. So as the celebrations continue on the podium then, we've seen race 1 of the all-new DTM for 2019. Race number 2, we hope in somewhat different weather conditions, are going to be rather different, but it will be just as exciting. I can't wait.
What an amazing first race of the new season 2019. Did we tell you too much? No, it was absolutely thrilling. The only thing is the weather. That was not okay. It was too cold and too wet, and we're hoping that for tomorrow, who knows, a bit of sun might come out. So you don't want to miss the race tomorrow, that's for sure. But for now, here are the highlights of the race. Enjoy and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Hat und was noch drin ist, wird er durchaus mit Erlaubnis seines Motorsports.
Also wir haben da nicht mit dem vom Qualifying drauf gehabt, sondern neu genommen mit dem Risiko, dass das